All right, we're live. Hi, everybody. This is Travis Howell. I'm the marketing manager for HL Flake Security Hardware and International Key Supply, which also includes HE Mitchell and McDonald Dash Companies. So again, normally uh, we had a lot of education scheduled for last week for our trade show. So now with everything that's going on, we're pivoting. That's kind of a word that we keep hearing. We're pivoting to do virtual events. And so today we're going to do a live Q&A with Brenton Webb, who is our access control specialist based here in Houston. And Brenton is in the office. We're both in the office today, but we're practicing social distancing. But we're not going to hang out in the same room to do this live Q&A. We're both in separate offices. But this hopefully this works well. And I can see the chats on both Facebook and YouTube. So if somebody can just throw a chat in there, let me know that you can hear us and everything's good. And we're going to start this question and answer session off with some basically going off a question that came in from Facebook. So we'll go ahead and start this off, Brenton. First question was, so from a high level, when you're going in to talk to a customer, what are some of the main selling points when you're trying to move somebody from a mechanical locking system to an electromechanical access control system?
Okay, so I would say the first and foremost, it would be a quicker way to gain entry to the space. You don't have to issue keys. Nobody has to open the door for, say, your employees. And also, you can have a record of when the employees came to work and have an audit trail for that. So, for your that particular customer, the audit trail would probably be there, the best thing that they see for having an access control system, being able to have an audit trail.
Right. Yeah. I mean, then you can go back and see who came in when. If there was an issue, you can start to isolate. Um,
Yeah, what employees are going out and taking, 10 smoke breaks versus 20, or you can track just everything with that audit trail.
right. So uh, you can't hear. So can everybody hear Brenton talking? Somebody chat for me, please. Um, all right, it says that Brenton's audio is really low. Um, all right, we'll try to adjust that. Let me see if I can turn it up. All right, so that kind of leads to the next question of should I have a key override on a door with access control, or should it be keyless? Should you try to have an all keyless system?
Um, that answer would be no. You always want a key override for an electronic lock, just because it's electronic. If it fails, you need a way to gain entry to the space. If there was no key and we have an emergency, there's no way to enter. So if there's nobody with a card or a pin or a fingerprint or face or whatever we're using, if there's no key override, you can't get in without uh, kicking the door in. Is your one of the only options, or going up and over. So yes, you should have a key override with electronic access control.
Okay, great. Another question that came up was so how does a fire alarm system release the doors? How does this access control system, how does it tie into The
Fire
fire,
alarm.
yeah, the fire alarm.
So the fire alarm companies, they'll have their system in place, and they'll give you what they call a fire alarm relay. It's just a relay uh, that changes states when the fire alarm goes active. So it can be normally open, it can be normally closed, whatever you ask them for. They'll normally give you both, a normally open and a normally closed double pole, double throw relay. So you have two options. You can take that fire alarm relay and have power cycle through the fire alarm relay and have it to break power that way. So for example, for a maglock, it'll break power and cut the power to the maglock. Or the other way is using a Ultronics. Um, it's an input output relay board. There's a fire alarm relay built onto it, and then you can just use the dry contact from the fire alarm relay to trigger it. And that relay, with that relay board, you can use it to trigger. If you have eight outputs on that board, you can use it to trigger and unlock one door, or you can use it to unlock all eight. You have an option. I like the input output board best because it works the best and it's the easiest to configure. And if you have to make any changes, is really simple to use once you get used to the board.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me? Can
Yeah,
they hear me, Travis?
yeah.
Did everybody?
It looks like it. Yeah, from the comments, it looks like I had at first the audio was down too low on your channel. So I think we're good. So another question: when it comes to power supplies, how do you know um, which power supply you need? I mean, if you're doing a job that is a 600-pound mag lock, or how do you know just what level of power you need?
Oh, right. Good question. So once you get a job, you know how many doors you have, you know how many strikes or maglocks you're going to go with. You have to take the power specs from each device. So, for example, we have a 600-pound maglock. I'm just throwing numbers out here. And let's say it would consume 500 milliamps of power. You have two of them. So 500 milliamps at two, that'll make you have a 1 amp total. If anybody needs help going over this, we can go over that later on. You can send me some questions. I can help you find information on it. So the maglops would consume 1 amp total. Let's say the door strikes consume 250 milliamps a piece. So two of those would make you uh, have 500 milliamps, which equals zero point 0.5 amp. So now we're at 1.5 amp total, and the your power, your main panel, let's say it would use 2.5 amps. So you would take your 2.5 plus your 1.5 and come up with 4 amps is what the system would use. Me personally, I would always go higher than trying to be exact. So you know you have 4 amps. I would go with a 6 amp power supply, and then you have much more power than you need um, by going with 6 amps. It's always better to have more power than not enough.
Okay, good. Um, so I guess on the topic of power, what is a battery backup and when do you need it? When do you always need a battery backup or how does that work?
Well, you don't uh, you need a battery backup when it's say the customer wants to. Let's say your customer says they want their system. If we lose power, they want the system to continue running. Then you would need a battery backup. There is like not a specific case where you must have one. But if the customer says they want a battery backup, then when you pick your power supply, be sure in the specs that it offers battery backup. So what happens, you take 12-volt batteries and it plugs into the power supply. When the power supply is on and receiving power, AC power, 120, those batteries are always charging. So the moment you lose power, the batteries take over and then they power the system for a time frame depending on how many batteries you have and how much load you have out there in the field. That'll be something else that we can go over on how to calculate how much. If let's say your customer says, I want the system to run for 6 hours after power goes out, you'd have to take and figure out how many parts and pieces they have, find out how many amps that would add up to, then to determine how many batteries you would need to keep it up and running for that time frame.
Okay, good deal. So how quickly? Another question that came in. So what is the difference between a Bluetooth card reader and other like RFID type of readers?
Okay, so your basic RFID reader, you can only use a card, right? You if it's a card and it has a pin on it, you can use a card or you can use a pin. That's the standard. What you'll see just about everywhere else. A Bluetooth reader functions a little differently. It'll still read the regular card, the regular RFID card, but also it can take Bluetooth credentials, which generally is comes in over our phone. So somebody you'll get an email and you'll have to set up the credentials on your phone. And then once done, instead of using a card, you can present your phone to the door and it would unlock the door the same way a card would. So when it's time to program a Bluetooth reader, though, you program it basically the same, and the credentials that you receive on your smart device, you add it into the access control system the same way you would add a card. And then the reader wires up exactly the same weekend back to the panel. So a Bluetooth reader is just so you can use your phone to get into the door, phone or tablet to get into a space.
All right. So I was starting to type into the Facebook chat. Does anybody want to throw out a question? You can add it in the chat window. And maybe at the end of this, we may try seeing if a call in works also. Because this being the first time we've done any kind of live streaming, we've tested this some, but this is the first time we've actually done it with an audience. So uh, this is us somewhat testing doing live streaming. So
Yeah.
yeah, if anybody has a question, just throw it out there and we will answer it. So, another question was about if you can kind of walk through, what is a request to exit or what is a REX and why is it needed and how does that work with also, a door contact?
Okay. So a Rex is a request to exit, and it's used on the egress side of the door when you are leaving the space. So it is either a motion detector or a switch inside of a mortise lock or an electrified exit device or electrified cylindrical device that it triggers back to the access control system in conjunction with a door contact. So you'll have two purposes. You'll have one with the mag lock, and with the mag lock, the Rex will just unlock the door and let you out. But if you're not using the mag lock and you're using a door contact, it works with the system. So motion detector or you turn the handle, it'll then tell the system that somebody is exiting, and the system doesn't go into alarm thinking somebody has opened the door without using a card, which would throw what they call a forced open in the software. So the Rex, when using a door contact, uh, it works hand in hand with it if you're using door contacts.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I would always recommend using door contacts if you're installing access control system.
So what? I mean, obviously that's not on a standalone, or is that, or some standalones do have a door contact, right?
For if the standalone is a truly standalone, so it's standalone and not monitored in any way, you can't connect to it. The door contact uh, feature you won't need. You can use the Rex feature. Some standalone units have a Rex feature where when it gets the Rex signal, it'll unlock. Um, so in a standalone, you most of the times won't need a door contact. But if you're using a standalone system that's say standalone and you can connect to it and add users some other way other than at the keypad, then a door contact can be utilized to know when the door is open or how long it had been opened.
Okay. All right.
Each scenario is going to be different. So um,
Yeah. 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 All right. So we do have a question that came in on Facebook. This is from Matt Bernard in, it looks like he's in Baytown. Um, he asks, what kind of ways are there to power the system? For example, plug in or hardwire. What other ways are there to power the systems?
power and access control system. So you you can power a system with a plug-in transformer. Um, you can power it with a power supply in an enclosure. Um, you can basically power it anyway as long as you have the power that the system takes. It's a preference. So my preference, I like power supply with the enclosure because it keeps all of my wires out of the way, all of my connections, splices, anything that needs to happen, I can do inside of the enclosure and it's not exposed. No, you won't have anybody that can go above ceiling and just get to your wires and possibly disconnect or cut anything of that enclosure without going into it. But it's a preference. So you probably won't find too many plug-in transformers that are higher than a whole bunch of them.
Okay. Um, let's see. A couple more
Is
questions.
that did he respond back?
Say that again.
Did he respond back?
That
Is
was
that
his question. I haven't
okay?
seen a response back yet. Um, well, somebody's asking what manufacturers does HL Flake carry, and what would be some of the differences in them?
Oh wow.
So, I mean, I know. Do you want to talk about access control systems? So this is from Susan Johnson, and so I guess let's talk about access control platforms, systems. So what are some of the
Platforms.
systems? Yeah.
Okay, so we have ZK Teco is one we carry quite a bit. We have Rossler. We have Cansec, Kerry, Schlage. Um,
Isonis would be under the Schlage. umbrella.
Correct. Isones would be under SLAG. We have quite a bit to accommodate whatever need you have. So everything from server-based panels to web-based panels to cloud-based back to standalone. We can cover it with what we have. Is there anything specific that they were looking for?
Well, I guess so. Real, very high level, very brief. If you could kind of
Mm-hmm.
explain the difference between networked versus cloud um, versus web access
Got
control
it.
systems.
So the server-based system would be an access control system that has to be on the network. Well, well, you have to communicate to it over the network. So in return, it needs to be plugged into the network. It needs a computer itself that software gets installed on, and that computer would hold the database for the system. So all of the card holders and users and the the complete setup would happen on that particular computer, which you call a server. All of the transactions and reports, you connect to it. The panels communicate to it, and everything is done off of the server. It is the control, and everything is held there. In a web based access control system, the software is built into the panel. So you don't have to install software anywhere. You just need the IP address of the panel and you can connect to it that way, just through a web browser. The database is held on the panel or the controller, and everything is on that controller. So no software involved when you get into a web-based panel. Then you have a cloud-based system. On the cloud-based system, the server is in some remote location, and there's going to be a fee involved for access control systems that are cloud-based. So the server is somewhere else, say Amazon Web Services. There is no software to install as well, and you can connect to it remotely from your computer, your phone, and you can connect to it from anywhere. That's the best the feature I like most about cloud based. I can connect from anywhere. Um, Generally, you're going to have a fee involved per door, just depending on the access control platform that's offering. So we have Isonis, which is cloud based. We have CanSec, which is cloud based, and their fees they differ just per manufacturer. The fees are going to be different per door.
Okay. Yeah, I know that's kind of there's a lot to answer there, right? There's
Correct
a
on the
lot
cloud
to that.
base.
So, and actually, that question came from Greg Johnson. And Greg, hopefully that helps to answer it. If not, you can clarify.
Contact me.
You can always contact Brenton. Yeah, let me mention. So, if you guys haven't met Brenton Webb, he is an access control specialist. He's based here in Houston. Normally working in the Houston office. Everybody. A lot of times we're working from home now, but you can contact Brenton for one-on-one consultation, whether that's just building your first access control project from the ground up, or even just questions about individual components within access control systems. Brenton is here to, help us know what to have a better understanding of what to stock and what to sell, and here to help you build out, the projects that come to you. So please use Brenton as a resource. Um, Brenton, what's your extension? I should know that.
Extension 287.
287. And you can email him at brenton.webb@hlflake.com. Um, So let's see, a couple other questions, and then I want to open it up and see if anybody wants to, and we haven't tested this yet, but if anybody wants to try to call in a question, um, let me. So you'll call my number, the office line, which is 800 and then I'm extension 247. Um, and that will actually redirect to my cell phone, and we'll see how it works trying to um, have the question broadcast. So if anybody wants to give me a call, that's 800 and I'm extension 247. Um, so, all right, another thing we could talk about here is so when it comes to lockdown, the lockdown feature in access control. So what does that mean? You know, we hear some manufacturers use that term. Um, what do you see manufacturers mean by lockdown?
By lockdown, so with all of the situations we've been having at schools and movie theaters and just all over the country, uh, the manufacturers have come up with a way to take a system, an access control system that would ordinarily be unlocked, take and you can just uh, have everything that's unlocked, that's functioning, and make the doors lock and make the doors non-functional. So these active shooter situations is specifically what this is has come about from. If we have a, let's just say we have a school, front door is unlocked, the front two doors are unlocked, some side doors are unlocked. If and something was going on outside of the school, the premise, and we want to be sure that nobody else comes in, you use the lockdown feature, which you can wire in as a button. You can have it where you have to go into the software. That's just a preference of how you want to go about it. But the moment you hit that button, those doors will lock, and the cards will no longer work for the users who don't have access during a lockdown scenario. So let's say, for example, at my kid's school, the principal would have access to come in during lockdown, and maybe a handful of other office workers would have access. So it just gives you a way to take and put a system and make it non-functional for anybody to enter the space, which is aimed around these active shooter situations we've had in the last few years.
Okay, great. So, you know, on the list of questions that I have here, I only have one more. So if anybody has a question, now's the time to pop in and ask that. You can either ask, you know, in the comments on YouTube or the comments on Facebook, or you can call me at 800 231 4105 extension 247, and we'll take your call any one of those ways. Um, so I have down here, you know, this is a little, and I know we've jumped around today. We've kind of bounced. The questions have not really been in order, but this one is basically, you know, with a different type of access control systems, how quickly can you remove a user? So if you need to get somebody out that's either been let go from a company or um, is there ever a delay or is it always
And
instant?
in a networked access control system, it's instant.
Yeah, in a networked.
Software.
Okay. Yeah.
The moment you make the change in the software and the network system, it is done and completed. So if you had an employee who was let go and you need to, you know they're going to be let go, you take them out of the system before you even let them go, and it'll be done. In case you don't get the car back or um, uh, just any of those things. There may be a pin system, but the moment you delete them, they would no longer have access, and you can still see that in your if you run an audit or on the live event, you can see it that the person, you can just make it inactive. You can leave their name in the system and just make them inactive. And if you want to see if they were still trying to use their credentials to get in, you could still go back and see that as well, if needed. Just depends. Those scenarios are specific to. But yes, it's instant. So a standalone system, you'd have to go to the reader and then manually take it out if you know the user.
Okay, very good. Um, so Matt also asks, are there any publications that cover the basics of access control? When it comes to books, I don't know. I know we sell quite a few automotive reference guides, um, but I don't know that we have, or I'm not aware of access control kind of basics
Publications, no.
publications. No, I mean that does lead into, um, there are classes available. We're planning to do Brenton's Access Control 101 class later this week, which would be as a webinar. So, that's one way. And that really starts with the kind of understanding the terminology and understanding just the basic components of an access control system. Um, is there anything you would add to that, Brenton, as far as, what your Access Control 101 class covers?
Um, 101 covers the basics. So it goes over the difference with the server based and the cloud based and web based platforms. It goes over locks and door contacts and Rexes. It'll go over everything that can, if you haven't done any access control and you're not familiar with any of the terminology, it would definitely jumpstart you because you would hear this stuff. Um, He goes over locks. I'll go over different locks, just a wide range of access control components. I'll go over. And during the course, questions would also help. Since it's online, we can kind of make changes on the fly and uh, address questions, or if you have questions about a specific um, something specific that we're going over, we can answer those questions for you as well with it being online now.
Okay. Well, also, so I think we're going to start to wrap this up unless anybody else has a question. Um, Also, I want to plug and say that we are having a webinar starting here in 30 minutes that you can still sign up for. All you do is just put in your name and email address, and then you're signed in. And that is Wayne Winton is doing social media and online marketing, basically kind of the part two of that. It's not the very, very basic. It's kind of the more advanced. And then again, as I was saying, we're going to have Brenton Webb is doing his Access Control 101 on Wednesday, and we're still building out a schedule um, of other education that's happening this week, as well as just going forward. I think we're going to be offering more online training. Really, we're kind of having to shift and pivot because of what's happened recently, and so um, we're going to keep building out this education content, and we'll go from there.